This program contains extremely coarse language and disturbing images. It also includes content that may be distressing for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander viewers.
This is a child in solitary confinement. Officers force him back into his cell, where he's been locked up for nearly 24 hours a day. One of them twists his legs and sits on him in a practice known as folding up. It carries a risk of suffocation and death.
Stop resisting!
For people to watch this footage, I want them to remember that this is a young boy, not a man, a kid.
Every year in Australia, more than 4,000 children are incarcerated.
These are the most marginalised children, the most vulnerable children in our country, in our nation. And these are the children we should be helping the most.
I know he's broken and he's hurt and he's got nobody. He's got no one in there, no compassion, no care.
Youth crime drives fear and anger, but policies that promise to crack down on young offenders are failing to deliver.
State governments are ignoring the evidence from the experts and their own departments. Politicians know that detaining children as young as 10 traumatises them and makes them more likely to reoffend, which is only putting the community more at risk.
So why does Australia continue to incarcerate children knowing the harms?
Our answer can't be to just keep locking kids up. We've got a recipe for making kids worse.
Broome in Western Australia is a town grappling with a major crime problem.
I think we've all had a gutful of it, to tell you the truth, and each time we see something happen, you just think, oh, but we're becoming so immune to it because it happens too frequently.
Julie Russell owns a gift shop that's been broken into multiple times. It's often children who are stealing from her.
Normally, if we know they're coming, we can race out of our office and try and chase them out, and you'll see exactly that, because within a couple of minutes they're racing back out of the shop. I've chased kids off before, and before you know it, they're trying to throw rocks and whatever else at me. So, you know, there's a possibility of actually getting hurt from these kids, especially when they're in a gang group.
What precautions have you had to take there?
I personally carry a pepper spray on me now. I don't know how many other people do, but I think that's my safety guard, because you don't know how they're going to react.
Youth offending across the Kimberley region has surged over the past 2 years. Last year, there were more than 500 burglaries. Children are posting videos of themselves on TikTok, stealing cars and getting into high-speed chases with police. The crimes are causing community division. This local man, Graham, tells us his ute has been broken into multiple times.
Your sign caught our eye before. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it's
I went to the cop shop to report something and noticed this sign sitting on the wall, and I thought, but I'll put that in my car, and most of them won't even take the time to read it. I tried buying rabbit traps to put around to stop people, but we're not allowed to have them in WA, so I've been told. But yeah, just got to go with the role.
You put them in the yard for people?
Oh, I wouldn't say that's why they would be put in the yard, but yeah, along them lines, just to deter.
Two and a half hours north of Broome, the town of Derby is struggling too.
Come in here. And Grace, this is what we discovered when we found out that the turf club had been broken into, where everything was just trashed. TVs were stolen and busted, and all our electronic gear was all over the place.
Shire President Jeff Hirowa runs the local turf club. It was hit by thieves last month.
We're looking at about $10,000 worth of damage. That's from our own assessment.
How much of a problem is youth crime in Derby?
It's been a massive problem. It's been our number one issue.
Jeff is frustrated not enough is being done to reduce youth offending across the region. The state government's announced $40 million in extra funding. But Jeff says a whole lot more work is needed to address the root causes.
There's plenty of kids here in Derby that are ending up in youth detention, and they're going round and round and round in that revolving door. So we can see where the problem is. The problem is at home. We can see that Department of Child Protection is failing in delivering their service to these people at home. Those wraparound services that are needed. Domestic violence is all part of it. Alcohol is all part of it.
What happens when kids are released from youth detention?
They come back into the very environment that they left. Nothing's changed for them. So what are they going to do? They're just going to repeat the offences over and over again.
In Derby, children of all ages are out on the streets late into the night.
They all got their stories of why they're not staying at home. A lot of people think they're just out there just running amok, but you have to know what their problem is before you can start saying anything about them, you know?
Amy and John are part of a youth night patrol run by a local Aboriginal corporation, which is helping reduce crime.
What are some of the reasons why kids would be out this late at night?
Sometimes there's a bit of drinking or whatever the case is, but some kids want to, try to avoid their house or want to look elsewhere for a safe place,
You guys carry food with you, food and drinks and that kind of thing. Why is that?
Because growing up in this town, we all pretty much know the little lifestyle. We all grew up similarly, don't have enough food in the house or live in overcrowded households, where you've got extended family members and, sometimes there isn't enough food to go around. So we're here, we can help them out.
It's a Thursday night, and at 10:15 p.m, the first passengers climb on board, 3 girls.
Jump in, sweetness, jump in, guys. All right, Bob. You guys want popcorn? Right.
Any green?
Nothing, Bob. Only this one.
"20 minutes later, the bus picks up another group of girls. The youngest is 9. They're given cordial and snacks before being dropped home.
See you soon. Remember me. Catch your on. Catch your on. See, okay with the Korean? Oh, you remember me?
For the children caught committing crimes, the consequences are dire. Here in the Kimberley, children are being picked up by police almost every day. More than 300 kids aged between 10 and 12 were arrested in the past year alone. And when they don't get bail, they're flown 1,600 kilometres to Perth to be locked up in youth detention. There is only one youth detention centre in the whole of Western Australia, Banksia Hill. More than 600 children are locked up here every year. 63% are Indigenous and many have severe neurological impairments.
These are the most marginalised children, the most vulnerable children in our country, in our nation. And these are the children we should be helping the most.
Banksia Hill has been plagued by dysfunction and riots for years. Conditions have only worsened in the past 12 months. Officers are being assaulted and are quitting their jobs, at times leaving the centre dangerously understaffed. The state government recently blamed detainees for the chaos, releasing these images of smashed up cells.
It's a very difficult situation. We're dealing with a group of young people who have severe, and I mean severe, behavioural issues.
One of those children is Steve.
I get bored easily, and I like smashing up the cell. What else you supposed to do? They expect us to sit there and do nothing.
WA law prohibits us from using his real name or showing his face, but Steve wants people to know what it's like in youth detention.
Boys like cry out for help, but they don't do nothing. Yeah.
What would you hear?
Like they're screaming, crying, I want to kill myself, like swearing and all that. Yeah. It's not really a place like you want to be, but you got no choice at the end of the day. You're in white people's hands.
In recent months, Steve and other children who have behaved violently have been confined to their cells for almost 24 hours a day. There have been at least 32 suicide attempts so far this year.
One boy ended up dying and they bring him back to life. Yeah. The support for boys trying to harm themselves is the lowest it could be.
Tell me if you don't want to answer this, but did you ever feel like you did want to harm yourself?
Yeah, there was a few times, yeah. Cause, who wouldn't think like that? Because you got no one to talk to, basically looking at four walls. And like, after a while, it will slowly get to you.
Steve was only released from Banksia Hill a few weeks ago. He's been in and out of youth detention for several years for serious property offences.
It's just very stressful leading up to this.
Today, his family members are hoping he won't go back inside.
I didn't think I was going to cry today. You all right? Do you want to take it in or? Yeah. Yeah, tuck it in. Yeah.
This incident shows Steve lashing out after prolonged isolation. Never before has CCTV footage from inside Banksia Hill been shown publicly.
It makes you wonder what else are they doing in there to these kids?
Jade and Deborah want to speak out, but under WA law, they can't use their real names.
I want people to see it, to understand that these young boys are in pain, they're hurting, and they need to be believed that these things are happening to them.
In early February, Steve was being held in the intensive support unit at Banksia Hill. It's where children who have misbehaved or tried to harm themselves are sent.
That day I was stuck in cell all day, never got a shower, nothing. And I basically wanted to get out of the cell.
The footage shows Steve sitting in a rip-proof gown. He gets up as an officer opens the door.
He passes a plate of food, and at the same time, the piece of bread is thrown on the ground from one of the officers. And it's like, you're kidding me. You just threw his food onto the ground? It took me a while to actually realise what he was doing. I made the person who showed us the footage, I made them stop, rewind, just to make sure that I wasn't overreacting. With the body language, you could see that he was angry about something, and he goes for the door. And as he goes for the door, it's chaos.
After a struggle in the corridor, Steve is cuffed and forced back into his cell. An officer twists the teenager's legs into a figure 4 and sits on top of him.
It's basically the whole time. There's like 100-something pound man on your legs, and they're trying to say relax and it won't hurt. How you supposed to relax? You got about 4 or 5 blokes on top of you.
The practice seen in this footage is commonly used by officers at Banksia Hill to restrain children while they exit a cell. It's described as folding up or hog tying.
It is excruciating, it is painful, and the children cry out for help. Stop, 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 don't do it anymore. Stop hurting me. And it continues. And it just goes back further and further and further to the point where the child can't move.
We've got to strengthen these safety nets.
Megan Cracker and Jerry Georgiadis spent 8 weeks working inside Banksia Hill in 2020. Together, they run a national suicide prevention service.
The boy was suicidal. He was contained in that cell, locked down, so he would not pose a risk to himself. Someone should have sat down with him and talked to him. Someone should have counselled him, ended him. Locking him up in a room, leaving him on his own, isn't the way to actually support somebody when they've attempted self-harm.
Is it a necessary method, though, when a child is being violent?
It's an obscene method. It's an obscene method. It is allowed to get away in there because it's part of their protocol.
The practice is banned in Queensland youth detention centres due to the risk of suffocation and death. It's not used by any police force in Australia. The WA Department of Justice said in a statement it's only used as a last resort in the most extreme circumstances for as little time as possible.
They never got taught to do that stuff to people that are older than them, so why do they do it to younger people like us?
Four Corners spoke with several boys, including 17-year-old Junior, who all say they've been folded up by guards.
Oh, yeah, like, well, what we mean by like that there, like saying by like getting folded, like, say like getting folded like pram, like, they would like have your hands like up touching to your head and like, they'll put your like things like that there till they're touching your back of your spine, and they'll just push it until you screaming.
Four Corners has obtained video footage of another folding up incident from this year. It again involves Steve. This time, the CCTV camera was badly scratched, but some of the event was captured on body-worn cameras.
Stop resisting!
Moments earlier, Steve had hit a guard with a mop.
Whack him in the back of the head with a mop. He was refusing to get the mop, so I called a code amber.
Steve is restrained by 5 officers. 4 press down on his arms and back, while 1 sits on his legs. He repeatedly begs them to ease the pressure.
Stop resisting and I'll ease it.
I've never heard him scream like that before. When I watched that footage the other day, no.
He's screaming out. He's telling them he can't breathe. He can't breathe. And they're telling him to stop resisting. And I'm not saying that, you know, what he did is right, but that could have been handled a hell of a lot differently.
A week after this footage was recorded, Jade visited Steve at Banksia Hill. He had multiple injuries from yet another incident.
He had a black eye, he had grazing on the side of his face, his shoulder. I never got one phone call, not one phone call. And so that's when I said, I want to put in a formal complaint.
The Department of Justice wrote to the family about their complaint. It said an outcome has been reached, the details of which are confidential.
It's ridiculous. It's like, well, have you made changes so this never happens again? But nothing. We don't know what the outcome is.
Earlier this year, the WA government took extreme action against Steve and 16 other boys. They were shackled and taken to a maximum security adult prison, where they were detained in a separate wing known as Unit 18. Corrective Services Minister Bill Johnston has consistently defended the decision and says it's the safest option while upgrades are made at Banksia Hill.
It's actually worked exactly what we expected, that when we're able to get these violent young offenders away from the majority of the youth offenders, we've been able to get a much better environment for everybody, including the youth offenders themselves.
You've spoken a lot about the violence of children detained in youth detention. What about excessive force by staff members in youth detention?
Can you give me an example?
Well, are you aware of allegations of excessive force being used?
There's often allegations of many things, and all those allegations should be fully investigated, and if criminal behaviour is demonstrated, there should be action. Of course, that isn't an excuse for violence against youth custodial officers, and I don't think anybody would accept going to work where they believe that they're unsafe.
Are there excuses, though, for staff members using excessive force?
As I say, if you have evidence of any criminal behaviour...
Well, you're the minister. Have you seen any evidence of it?
No, I have not.
10 staff are currently under investigation over complaints of excessive force in youth detention. Four Corners can reveal one officer has been charged with assaulting a child.
If there's been illegal conduct by anybody, it should be investigated and the criminal law should be applied.
Are you aware of what folding up is?
No, I'm not aware of what folding up is.
Are you aware of what a figure 4 restraint is?
No, I'm not aware of a figure 4 because I'm the minister. I don't personally work in the custodial estate. I'm not a youth custodial officer. I don't, and of course it's not reasonable for me to know the specific details of any, allegations that might be made by a young offender.
Junior got out of youth detention recently. He says racism is also used as a form of abuse.
To be honest, there was a lot of racist comments going around in the thing from securities, like calling them bongs and that there, and black cunts, like saying, sorry for the language, but saying black seeds and that there, and all that there. Like very racist stuff, calling us apes and monkeys. Like, we don't deserve to be called that there.
How would that make you feel if you heard that?
It just makes me feel angry for my culture.
How's it going?
What's happening?
Yes, not much.
The WA government is facing a growing class action lawsuit.
Have a yarn with you?
Yes.
So what's been happening?
Megan and Jerry are helping gather testimony from hundreds of current and former detainees across the state.
I just want to tell you about what's going on with Banksia Hill at the moment.
Yes.
The class action is going to be launched in the federal court.
One of the lead plaintiffs is 20-year-old Joel Vida Mead, who has schizophrenia and an intellectual disability. He was first detained at 12.
I didn't feel strong, I didn't feel good at all. I was just thinking, none of that needed to happen at the time. Yes, I don't even know why I'm in this place. I shouldn't have been in there at the time.
There's a sameness of these allegations by these children across hundreds and hundreds of testimonies, that they're locked down almost indefinitely, that they're denied basic rights such as counselling, mentoring, supports, health services, educational activity, recreational activity. And it's the unlawfulness, but it's the human rights abuses, the rights of children being abused.
The Supreme Court recently delivered a damning ruling against the WA government. It found that on 26 occasions, a boy was confined unlawfully to his cell for more than 20 hours a day. Four Corners has confirmed lockdowns of this length continue for children at the adult prison.
Why are you willing to allow your department to continuously break the law?
Well, I don't accept the basis of that question.
Why not?
Well, because you know, if you can explain to me what you think that I've done, then I'll respond to the allegation.
That children are being unlawfully detained for an inappropriate number of hours per day in their cells.
Are you saying that's happening now?
Correct.
Well, you don't have any evidence of that.
All rise.
2 days after our interview with the Minister, the President of the Children's Court, Hilton Quayle, described the government's use of solitary confinement as child abuse and warned that continuing unlawful lockdowns are putting it at risk of contempt of court. This elder, who we're calling Pat, has a young family member detained at Unit 18 at the adult prison.
It's not like a deterrent, it's like a concentration camp. The children just get downtrodden, called all sorts of demonic and derogatory names, and it just builds up a hatred and a real hardness in their life.
Auntie Pat makes the hour-long drive to visit the teenage boy as much as she can. He's burgled homes and assaulted guards, but has multiple psychological impairments, including fetal alcohol spectrum disorder.
I'm starting to get a bit panicky in my chest. I know if I cuddle him, he'll start going, and then I know that it's a big cry, and that'll start me. So, I don't want to cry because I know it'll really upset him and he'll start, being abusive.
When she arrives today, she's told he has declined the visit. She isn't told why.
What would you have liked to say to him today?
That I love him dearly and I really miss him, and I can't understand why. I can't see him today, because I know he's broken and he's hurt and he's got nobody. He's got no one in there, no compassion, no care.
Judge Hilton Quayle has described the boy's behaviour in youth detention as vile, but said he suffered 33 days of essentially solitary confinement. The judge concluded, when you want to make a monster, this is how you do it.
I was really devastated to think that they can do that legally in there and treat those kids far more harshly than ever we would. And it's a part of their job. They can put bruises on them, on their bodies, as well as their character, and get away with it.
Australia's most notorious youth detention centre is Dondale in the Northern Territory. Every Friday night, families of children who've been locked up fight to be heard. The campaign to shut Don Dale has been running for 6 years now.
Four Corners actually showed and put a spotlight on this torture chamber called Don Dale.
In 2016, Four Corners aired a story called Australia's Shame. It showed children in spit hoods, being thrown to the ground by guards, and getting tear gassed in their cells.
No, don't put it in my mouth, I can't breathe.
Australia vowed never again.
We will establish, in cooperation with the Northern Territory Government, a Royal Commission to inquire into those events, to inquire into the system of youth detention, the management of youth detention centres in the Northern Territory.
A Royal Commission delivered its findings 5 years ago. The Northern Territory Government accepted the intent and direction of all 227 recommendations. It's currently building a new youth justice facility focused on rehabilitation.
I think that what we need to do is ensure that our young people are in a safer environment as best as we possibly can, and that work is happening. We are not the system we were in 2016.
You're confident of that?
I am absolutely confident that we are not the system we were in 2016 when the youth justice system sat within adult corrections with adult prison officers. We've all seen the footage. It's alarming. We are not there anymore. And I am certain, 100% certain, that our whole system is now geared that way. It is reformed.
The Minister told us youth justice in the Northern Territory is reformed. Do you agree with that?
No.
Nicole Hucks is the Acting Children's Commissioner. She visits Don Dale every month. Her office has received more than 400 complaints in the past year alone about problems including solitary confinement, racism and excessive force.
I've seen incidences which have quite frankly shocked me.
Shocked you even though you've seen that footage from 2016?
Yes. It shocks me in that it still continues to happen.
The Office of the Children's Commissioner has provided Four Corners footage of this incident from last year. It shows 3 officers surrounding the cell of a 13-year-old boy who's at risk of self-harm. They tell him to exit, and as he walks out, a guard grabs him by the neck. He's wrestled to the ground and held face down for nearly 2 minutes. The Children's Commissioner has found the use of force was both excessive and unnecessary. How is it possible that these sorts of situations are still playing out at Don Dale?
It comes back to those Royal Commission recommendations and the key reforms that were kind of identified through the inquiry and the entirety of that inquiry. You know, there's evidence-based recommendations entailed in that final report, and those recommendations haven't been implemented by this jurisdiction.
So this is the failure of government?
Yes.
The NT government says it's implemented more than 170 recommendations so far. But our research shows some of those marked complete have actually been rejected. What's your definition of what is considered complete?
So that they're in place, are finished and implemented.
So, for example, one of the recommendations that is said to be completed is the use of body-worn cameras, but your government decided not to implement this, and yet it's marked completed. That's a little misleading, isn't it?
We would have looked at that and seen what was practical on whether it was necessary, and a decision would have been made at that time. So that would have been closed off. I think probably the word we're looking for here is closed rather than completed.
So when I asked what your government's definition is of complete, it's more that it's closed.
Well, that would be a closed recommendation. We would consider the consideration of that to be complete, and a decision would have been made that not necessarily was in line with the recommendation of the Royal Commission, but that a conscious decision had been made that that was not going to be delivered, yes.
Every state and territory is under scrutiny over its treatment of children in detention. Australia is one of the only countries in the developed world to still lock up children as young as 10. It's a position condemned by Mick Gooder, who led the Dondale Royal Commission.
In 100 years' time, people are going to look at us and say, they locked kids up who were 10 and 11 and 12. What were they thinking to do with this? We'll be considered barbarians by future generations because we locked 10-year-olds up.
Australia has spent years debating the age of criminal responsibility. A special report was prepared by justice departments around the country in 2020, but the findings have never been made public.
I'm just flabbergasted that there's this report floating around and no one who I know who advocate in this space have ever seen it. So let's make it public.
Four Corners has obtained a copy. It reveals the majority of states and territories recommended raising the age of criminal responsibility to 14 without exception. The report found detention can disrupt brain development, compound trauma, and create lifelong negative outcomes. It says,
the younger the child is when first having contact with the justice system, the more likely they are to go on to re-offend.
If we know it makes communities more unsafe by locking kids up, why keep doing it?
Because it plays out in the electorate. There's always a law and order debate that happens. I've experienced senior ministers in a government saying, look how better we are than the last mob because we're locking more people up. They wear it as a badge of honour.
No government except the ACT has committed to raising the age of criminal responsibility to 14. The Northern Territory recently raised it to 12. The report found one risk of the policy is a potential community backlash. Why do you think it's politically unpopular to raise the age?
Because of the broader community perspectives on youth and youth offending, and that narrative is quite loud.
People at home will be thinking, but kids who are 10 and 11 and 12 commit murder and rape. I'm not saying you give those a free kick, you take them as special circumstances and you deal with it. But you don't do that right across the population of locking kids who are 10 and 11 and 12 and even 13 up. We've got a recipe for making kids worse when they come out.
Their way of doing it is, it's not working. It's not working. A lot of these officers are probably stressed out to the max, but that doesn't mean you can walk in there and beat the hell out of our kids.
Steve's been out of youth detention for almost 2 months. For now, he's allowed to live at home as long as he stays out of trouble.
Were you worried he might get sent back?
Yes. Yep. And there was thoughts in my head that he ain't going back. Well, I'm gonna run. I'm gonna take him. I'm gonna run. I'm gonna hide him. We would have disappeared.
Why did you feel that way, that you needed to run?
Because of the pain and the hurt that he's been through. He needed to know that, yeah, we will get through this somehow. I don't know how we're going to heal all the inside wounds, but the outside ones, he's scarred. But, you know, I would have just ran until he was safe, I suppose, somewhere safe.
If this program has raised any concerns, you can contact one of these services.